Who's that coming down the track? Who's that coming down the track? It's a mean machine in red and black. Mean machine in red and black. Ain't nothing finer in the land. Ain't nothing finer in the land. Them Georgia obnoxious Georgia fans. Them Georgia obnoxious Georgia fans. Go, go! Go, go!
What's up, y'all? This is John, Mike, and Caleb back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. Live on Millions, part of the Fans First Sports Network. Almost forgot that part. But it sucks. None of us want to be here having this conversation right now.
So we just won't. See you guys next time.
Yeah, bye.
Drunk obnoxious Georgia fan. Bye.
No. There were actually some enjoyable games. I had a very interesting trip, and we'll get into all of it. But outside of the Georgia part of it, how have you guys been? What are you drinking?
I've been good. I finally got to go disc golfing for the first time. I thought I wouldn't because most of the courses around here have been shut down since the hurricane and not put back together. But we've got a couple here that apparently are, and I enjoyed it so much. I actually just got a disc golf cage that came in today.
Sweet.
That I'll be able to set up in my backyard and mess with. So
I've had one for 2 years and used it for like a total of 50 practice putts. So hopefully
Nice.
You actually practice because my putting still sucks.
I'm gonna try. I need to because mine also sucks. But yeah, I've been good. I'm drinking some flat Coke Zero that I put in the fridge yesterday after going out. So, hooray!
Yeah. I'm doing all right. I've been waiting all day for Sunday night. We're recording right before kickoff. So my personal 4P is hanging on by a thread, but we'll see how that goes.
Search your feelings, Mike. You know it's over.
Whoa!
It's not over.
With Georgia having a ton of sports, does any sport count? Like if they get one of baseball or basketball.
March Madness, baby.
Well,
not after yesterday, probably.
Well, that's a good point because you know what, the Braves still have a chance. That's right. That's true. We might be all right.
No, they don't.
No.
They've pretty much
they have a chance to get to the
go.
first round of the playoff and then lose to the Phillies again.
Oh well, surely the Falcons made the playoffs, right?
No.
Oh no.
The Bucks had to lose, and the Bucks came back and won that game.
Oh
yeah. Did the Falcons end up winning their game in overtime? I mean,
no.
Gotcha. Oh wow, really? Against the Carolina?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They lost in overtime.
Well, apparently Bryce Young remembered he's good at football.
Wild, it wasn't a low scoring.
That it took him so long to remember that, but
yeah, crazy.
Falcons, shout out the Falcons.
Christopher Smith and Keely Ringo ain't lining up back there. I can do this. So Mike, as the fan of another team, we're the only two people in this podcast who are fans of NFL teams that are actually making the playoffs. How does that feel?
It feels great. We were talking about it before we got on. There's a lot of Lions fans that have come out of hiding, out of the closet, so to speak. I've always been out there because I don't care. I'm open with my feelings that they've hurt me quite a bit in my life. It's child abuse to make your kid a Lions fan, or it had been up until about 2 years ago. Yeah. But it's good. I mean, I'm nervous about this game. They very, very desperately need this bye week. But you know what? I said the same thing about Georgia and
bye week didn't help.
Didn't help at all. So, although there were some other circumstances that were
making that harder. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, but I'm good. I'm just drinking some water, and I will be super distracted this whole time.
Great.
I'm also drinking water. From when I got to the airport at 8:00 in the morning on January 1st until I got back on the plane Friday afternoon, all I consumed was alcohol. And I would eat like one meal a day, maybe two. So
I mean, when in New Orleans, right?
Yeah. So I have told myself that I will not be drinking for. At this point, it's already like first week of January is over, so we'll just say the rest of January. Can't be a dry January because
Semi dry.
drank a month worth of alcohol in 4 days.
Well,
But
you needed it though. You ended
Yeah.
up really needing it.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I will say I was the last person to buy a beer in our section because they shut it down right after I bought it.
Oh,
So,
okay.
you know, I got lucky there. Let's go in chronological order of the game so we can put off our pain for as long as possible.
There we go.
So we had New Year's Eve as I was driving down to Orlando. The Penn State Nittany Lions just beat the hell out of Boise State.
Called that.
Yeah, you did, Mike. You did. I had so much hopium in me, but
Well, here's the wild thing. Maddox Madsen, 304 passing yards. Ashton Genty, 102 rushing yards. If I would have told you before the game those two things happened, how many points do you think Boise State got?
69.
I mean I would have put him in the 30s for sure.
Right, 400 total yards between two guys.
Yeah.
No, what was it, 13? They get 13?
Something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know. I stopped watching.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. You know, one team controlled the line of scrimmage, ran the hell out of the ball, forced the other team into mistakes. So I had all of that correct. Just the wrong team.
Yeah, the wrong
Yeah.
colors, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Maddox Madsen had almost as many turnovers in that game as he had all season.
So not the real Mad Dog. The real Mad Dog has great control.
Yeah, that was a tough look. It was not fun. We were almost all wrong in the next game. You know,
Yeah.
Texas and Arizona State in Atlanta, and that was such a fun game.
Well, and it felt like we were going to be right about that.
Yeah.
early on, it felt. I turned it off and then turned it back on in the second
Yeah.
half. 'Cause I had nothing else to do.
Yeah, I thought for sure that
Glad I
the Fiesta Bowl was the one that was going to be closer than folks were giving credit for.
Mhm.
But turns out.
But Antonio Brown gave Cam Scatterboot the cracker of the day or the week or whatever it was. So shout out to him.
He did. And he earned it.
Can he say that word? I thought that was our word.
No. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Fair
He
enough.
used a hard R though. I'm kind of
Yeah,
about that.
That makes it tough. No, man, that game was a ton of fun. Cam Scatterboot, puke and rallying as you do going to college in Arizona, even though he said he doesn't drink, is kind of
That's wild. He's tough and all in. But when I throw up on New Year's Day, I'm an alcoholic. It's double standard. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Being the first player in the history of the Peach Bowl to win the MVP and play for the losing team.
That's
Pretty nuts.
Yeah.
incredible.
Wild.
Yeah.
I
He
will
deserved
say,
it though.
Sam Levitt, underrated quarterback, I feel, for all but, well, most people. I was still underrating him last week.
Hmm.
Played a hell of a game.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did. He
If-
really did.
If Arizona State can get any sort of decent running back duo next year, because you can't ask one person to do what Cam did this year.
No, you can't.
If you can get two guys next year, Arizona
Man.
State is looking good in the Big 12 again.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Wow.
wide open yet again.
Yeah, just as everybody predicted, Arizona State running the Big 12.
Yeah. And, man, I will say, had anyone in college football understood the targeting rule this season, we're probably talking about Texas being terrible again.
They're still afraid. The referees are still afraid to have stuff thrown all over them.
And the Cotton Bowl is going to be in Arlington.
Texas,
so it's
so-
same deal.
Bevo is going to be there that time.
Yeah, Bevo will be there.
Yeah.
Did cows eat Buckeye nuts?
I imagine. I'm gonna Google this. I'm gonna Google.
Do cows eat nuts? Hmm.
Can
People eat cow
Longhorn
nuts.
steers eat Buckeye nuts? I wonder how many times that's been Googled this week. I can find stuff on humans.
Well, I think
But,
Buckeye nuts, like the actual nut, is poisonous to humans. Pretty sure.
Yeah, they absolutely are. But
So
I
that's why
can't.
all their fans are so toxic. It's just all the nuts they consume.
And it's a hairless nut as well, so just useless all around.
Yeah, I can't find anything specifically about Buckeye nuts for. Oh, hang on. Ohio beef newsletter. Watch for Buckeye poisoning. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Buckeyes are poisonous to cattle. So
Side note, right before we moved down to Walton County when we were still living in Detroit, there was billboards all up and down the freeways uh trying to scare us into caring about climate change because they said with the warmer temperatures, the Buckeye trees and Buckeye nuts are moving farther north, so we wanted to keep that out of Michigan. And I don't know if it worked, but
sounds
it was
pretty
effective.
convincing to folks
Yeah, it was
up
effective.
there. Yeah.
I mean, there's no more cars made in Michigan, so looks like it worked.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Destroy the economy so you don't have trees.
Yep. Throw in the water supply for good measure.
Yeah.
Ask Flynn
Michigan.
about water.
Sports. It's so wild to say that the sports are the best thing about the state of Michigan right now.
It's, and the Pistons are good, are relatively good right now. They're hot. The Tigers made the playoffs, but they're probably going to fall back to the pack. The Red Wings.
Hey, so did the Michigan Wolverines. That was good enough for them.
Hey, they might be a problem next year, but we'll have plenty of time to get into that because we don't have any games that we care about going forward.
Yeah,
no more important football games. The season's just over.
The worst part about
Texas and Ohio State can enjoy their little bowl game. It doesn't matter.
The worst part about the 4 teams left in the playoff is if I had like a top 10 list of teams in college football I hated,
they're all there.
They're all in the top 10.
Yeah. I will say, just as a note, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, Marcus Freeman has kind of earned my respect as a coach.
Yes.
And the other 3 obviously have not. So I know who I'm rooting for the rest of the playoff. I don't feel great about it, but I'm also Catholic, so it's fine.
It's your second team.
The only reason I don't, and we'll talk about the Notre Dame fans later, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm a big fan of them for sure.
I will give them some props before we get into everything else.
I will say one other thing about like when you guys were talking about the remaining field. I'm in a group text with some old colleagues of mine that are Notre Dame. There's one that's a Notre Dame fan, one that's an Ohio State fan, and they're asking me, who I'm pulling for the rest of the time. And I'm like, well, I guess Notre Dame would be first, and I guess Penn State. Third would be World War III.
Yeah.
Fourth would be Texas. Fifth would be Giant Asteroid, and then the last one would be Ohio State.
I don't know, man. Kim Jong-un may still be above Texas and Ohio State.
Yeah.
No, fair.
Like Red Dawn, is that an option above Texas or Ohio State?
Bring it.
No. Oh, something I forgot to mention during the Penn State and Penn State Boise State that I do need to do this. I'm gonna go ahead and apologize.
You're gonna be taking it back. You're gonna be taking it back next week. But go ahead.
No. I don't even remember what I said I would apologize to him for. I asked people to go back and listen because I hate the sound of my own voice. No one did, so was general apology here. I apologize, James Franklin, for thinking that you were incapable of change. It may have taken you a decade, but you finally learned to get out of your own way. You've learned to trust the coordinators that you convince your administration to spend millions of dollars on to make the correct calls. Because you were willing to change, you currently have one of the best teams in the country and a legitimate chance to win the title, as long as you don't go back to how you used to be. And that is as nice as I can be to James Franklin.
Yeah, he's going to go back to how he used to be in his next game. Guarantee it.
Hope
yeah,
so.
that'll be interesting. But
yeah.
Do we need to talk about Ohio State, Oregon? Can we avoid saying anything positive about Ohio State?
Shocked and disappointed.
Yeah.
In that performance from Oregon and from Dan Lanning. Like, I get Ohio State does look really freaking good. I won't deny that.
Mm-hmm.
but come on. They could have done so much better than that.
Yeah, I mean that brings up the argument about the rest versus rust thing. We know it all too well as Braves fans that it didn't really work out the last little bit for them having some time off. I'm hoping that when we inevitably move to 16 teams and we all have like first round home games and there's no buys, that might be a little bit better. Not saying that that's the reason why all these teams lost, but
No, it's
you got a week beforehand or 10 days beforehand to rev up the juices and get going again and all that. Like that's a long time off.
yeah.
But
It
what
is.
like 20 days or something like that, or yeah, 20 days, something like that.
I will say I do not necessarily think that had anything to do with Boise State.
No.
Boise State
No.
just had a bad defense. We saw it all year, and I was like, man, it's all right. They're playing Penn State, and then Penn State was like, we're actually good on offense right this second. Give us a minute, it may change, but like right now, offense we can do.
Is Jarrell good?
I would also say it probably didn't affect the Georgia game a whole lot, and if anything, the bye probably still helped Georgia just getting in the new quarterback.
Yeah.
Even though he was the only one who tried the other, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But this one felt like it was Ohio State came with a lot of juice that Oregon didn't have, and that big win against Tennessee almost certainly helped with that.
Yeah, I mean, it only took a 12-game preseason, but Ohio State players are finally living up to their $28 million, salary.
Yeah.
12-game preseason is what the Big Ten needs to be worth a damn, is what I'm understanding.
Apparently so.
You might have an all Big Ten national championship to prove that.
Or maybe they just got real pissed off about losing to Michigan again and said, screw it. We ball.
Yeah, that. You know what? Still want to take it back, though. Not at all. Still worth it.
All right, guys. I feel like we gotta go ahead and get into it because we're all upset. We're all angry. I'm sure there's gonna be.
I'm gonna say this first so I can get to the bad stuff, because I did say on the preview pod that I would say this, and it's true. It's still true. On the preview pod, I said if we lose to Notre Dame and that's the last game of the season, I'm gonna come on here and say that I'm proud of this team for even making it that far. Because let's be real, for at least most of the second half of the season, we didn't think they were gonna get there. Probably weren't good enough in terms of how they played. I understand talent level and all of that, but in terms of how they actually played on the field, they probably weren't good enough to get there. So, you got to tip your cap to the team for making it this far, and you can tip your cap to the Georgia defense and Gunnar Stockton and no one else for putting in a great effort against Notre Dame. Everybody else, what were y'all even doing?
Yeah.
Like, offensive line, everyone, ironically, every pass catcher not named Arian Smith did not drop the ball, and just everyone else did.
Yeah.
I don't understand what was happening there. But was just disappointed. And again, I get it with the way the week went, not feeling up to playing your best, but that also applies to the other side of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to at least recognize what they're doing and try to match them physically. And that's just this team got out physicaled and out coached by Notre Dame. And that's what made it so frustrating. Like most of the time, we've experienced a lot of disappointment as Georgia fans. We understand this. And most of the time, that disappointment has been this team could accomplish so much more, and it just fell short at some point. This didn't really feel like that, except in the fact that, like, if we had gotten beat by somebody who was making our corners look, silly and really taking advantage of our receivers' drops, which Notre Dame did that, in fairness.
Like, if it was Ohio State and they came out and beat them, it's not really any shame in that.
It's the fact that they beat us by being more physical and with great coaching decisions that makes it hurt the most, because we we might have lost the game either way, but we know we can play more physical than we did, and we know the coach. And I don't blame Kirby Smart at all for not being on it. I mean,
Right.
his dad was actively in the hospital at that point fighting for his life. Like nobody would be totally focused at that point. And again, that's not an excuse for losing the game. Again,
You know
even if it
what?
becomes
No excuses, but Kirby Smart's dad actively passing away in the hospital during the game, given what happened the day before, Kirby has an excuse.
yeah, absolutely.
Like,
And so
no excuse
yeah.
for the players and lack of
Yeah.
effort.
no excuse for the play calling from the offensive coordinator
No
at times.
no excuse for James Coley's lack of coaching ability.
Yes.
He needs to be executive of recruiting and never talk
Yeah.
to another player once they get on campus.
Yeah.
As far
and
as
in
I'm
terms
concerned.
and in terms of Mike Bobo, like I've been the biggest Mike Bobo defender on this podcast. I've probably been the biggest Mike Bobo defender in the main Georgia social media community. But at a certain point, you got to recognize it's just not doing it. And I think I pinpointed the problem thinking about it earlier today. You know, I don't want to call it genius because it makes a lot of sense when you had the players that he had, but the genius of Todd Monken was that somebody was getting open on his play no matter what. And he just knew who the guys were that were going to get open, and there was nothing the defense could do about it. That's just how the play was designed. And Bobo used a lot of the same playbook, from what I understand. That's what Kirby is insisting on. But the way he is using it and the way he is coaching it is apparently, read through your reads and see who fights their way to get open, which worked a little better in 2023 than it did this year, because in 2023 you had Lad McConkey and Brock Bowers who could get open, and Marcus Rosemy-Jackson even to an extent, who could just get open.
And when they managed to cover both of those guys, it's because there were two guys on each of them, and someone was streaking wide open down the field.
Exactly. Yeah. And those guys, even if it was just good coverage all around, those were guys who were capable of making contested catches.
Yeah.
We don't, I get we have the quarterback who could just make a read and figure out who's open. Carson Beck, that's kind of his deal. That's what he's good at. Our receivers are not good at making the kind of contested catches you have to be able to make when you're doing that. They're not as good at running routes that get them open as those other guys were. They're just not as good. So adjustments.
Receivers not being good at running routes, not good at making breaks, not good at catching.
It's almost like our receivers were just not good.
It's almost like our receivers didn't develop over the last 2 years.
That's weird. Who's the wide receiver coach again?
I think this guy, I think his name's James Coley. Yeah. If you guys remember, he was Georgia's offense coordinator in 2019.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I should have to say much else.
So I think, and again, like I get Kirby loves his boys. Sorry, I don't mean to hog the time, but I've just been thinking about this all day. Kirby loves his boys. You don't have to fire. They're loyal to the program if they're back this time. Like Mike Bobo showed up as an analyst. Let him coach quarterbacks. Sure, you want to keep Gunnar Stockton happy, and he's known that family. Sure, let him coach quarterbacks. Bring in somebody else to call plays. Let James Coley be an analyst and come along on recruiting visits, and let somebody else coach the receivers.
Make him the executive recruiter.
Yeah.
Just let his entire job be recruiting.
Yeah, and let that be that. I'm sure, given their history and given how they have already been more than willing to take lesser jobs with your program to make the program better, I don't think there's a problem with doing that and bringing in like a Buster Faulkner to call the plays. But
do you know who would be a really good wide receiver coach?
A former Georgia wide receiver, I imagine, is who's on your mind?
Yeah, is this guy, he a Super Bowl MVP?
He did. Yeah, he did.
Oh, did he recently coach a UFL, or I guess XFL conference champion in the UFL this past season?
That he did.
And was he a wide receivers coach on a team that made contested catches and had very few drop passes this past week?
That would be him. That is Hines Ward. If you didn't pick up what we were laying down.
Yeah. So.
And if you don't know, he is the wide receivers coach at Arizona State right now. Yeah. Not normally one of those schools that's willing to pay their coordinators and coaches very well. You know what? Athletic department, Bulldog Club. Send me a letter. Let me know how much you need to help out with that, because I remember us actually yelling about it like 2 years ago and last year,
Yeah,
and then again this year. Why is Hines Ward not the wide
the wide
receivers
receiver.
coach?
Yeah, that doesn't make a lick of sense. And
Why are the Lions running the Mike Bobo fucking playbook right now? Golly, man.
Dan Campbell running the Mike Bobo playbook was not on my bingo card. I got to be honest with you.
Uh, yeah. I do want to talk about my trip just a little bit. So, you know, I'll be honest, guys. By the time I got to TSA on the morning of January 1st, I had no idea what had happened. Um, and as I was getting up to the line, I got like 3 or 4 phone calls from different family members, and I was just like, silence. I'm putting my phone in my bag to go through security, and I get on the other side and I start calling people back, and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, I'm in the airport. What's up? And
This got felt up by TSA, but yeah.
I I will say, did
At least
not
buy
get
me a drink
stopped.
first.
I did not get stopped this time, which, if you know me, is a shocker. I've almost gotten stopped every time I've ever been to an airport. And so I find out what happens, and then, talking to other Georgia fans and even some Notre Dame fans at the airport, everybody's like, "Man, what do you think's going on with the game?" And we obviously know what happened. Get to the hotel, meet up with my friend JJ that I went to New Orleans to meet up with, and they postponed the game, so we're scrambling. And shout out Hilton Garden Inn, New Orleans Convention Center. They were one of the few hotels in the city that didn't triple their prices when they heard what was going on.
Oh,
Good for them.
yeah.
The hotel that we stayed at the first night, they wanted almost $300 for the second night,
Oh
when
my
their
gosh.
regular rate was like, I think it was like $140, and they wanted $300 almost for the second night. But, make this reservation through Hilton's website and get to the confirmation and realize I made it for the wrong night.
Oh
Oh no.
no.
So I call them and I'm sitting on hold for a minute. I talk to somebody. I'm like, "Hey, made a reservation for the wrong night, but I see you guys have availability tomorrow night, which is the night I need." And she's like, "What's your last name?" "All right, done. You're good to come tomorrow."
Let's go.
Oh yeah.
And, when I got there, everybody at the hotel was awesome. I left them a 5-star review on every website I could find because, given the circumstances, not raising their price. Anytime I walked through the lobby, there was a 5-person line waiting for all 4 people. Never was rude that I saw. Just an amazing staff given the circumstances. Um, so, anyways, get to the game. The casino took my lunch money that morning,
Of course.
so I just took what was left and went to the bar and ended up meeting up with Perry. If you guys listen to SDS, you hear about Perry quite a bit. He's the guy that has the suite with Kamler that I've been to
Sweet.
before. So I was in line to get a beer. He got in line behind me to get a Coke and tapped my shoulder. He was like, "Hey, I didn't know you were here." Out of, I don't even know how many people were at like the tailgate town situation, and he just happened to walk up in line right behind me, the single person that I knew at the game.
Wild.
Um, so we ended up hanging out, get to the seats, and JJ wasn't able to move his flight around, so I was sitting there by myself. And I'm surrounded by Gunnar Stockton's family.
Let's
Oh, yeah.
go.
They were all awesome. His mom, dad, siblings, and their significant others were sitting in the row in front of me. His aunt and uncle were to my left, and his cousin and other uncle were to my right. So
So you were just
that,
part of the family.
yeah,
Yeah.
his one of his sisters did give me a hug after the game
Oh,
because of the story I'm about to tell. Um, I do want to say before I even get into this, every Notre Dame fan I have ever met is cool. I'm friends with a few in real life. Never had a problem with a single one before the game, right?
yeah.
And this was 2 people. One was a lot more vocal than the other. Um, but this person that was sitting 2 rows behind me, every time Georgia snapped the ball, would yell something along the lines of, kill him, slit his throat, put him in a body bag. And between first and second quarter, I'm like, hey, I talked to security. I'm like, hey, I know you're 3 feet away from her. I know you can hear her. His family's sitting right there. Like, maybe, given what happened yesterday, his family's right there. Maybe just tell her, like, choose some different language. Like, beat his ass, hurt him, hit him. Anything short of murder, right?
Yeah, get him is a common one for me, and I don't feel like it's that hard to do something like that.
When you're chasing a quarterback, I'll yell beat his ass. Like, oh,
yeah,
acceptable. Not murder is the key part of that. And security was like, yeah, you know what, man, you're right. I'm gonna go talk to her. And I go sit back down in my seat. And start of the third quarter comes around. I gave him the whole second quarter and halftime to talk to this lady. Start of the third quarter, she's back at it again. And this is like Georgia's first drive in the third quarter. So it's not like game's out of hand. It's not like I'm just a pissy Georgia fan trying to yell at some Notre Dame fan, because there were other Notre Dame fans in our section that were looking at her like she was crazy.
Yeah.
So it's not even like I'm the asshole here. And I stood up and I was like, hey, what happened yesterday? His family's right here. Maybe choose some different words. And she started cussing me out. So I proceeded to lose my mind. I will say top three losing it's I have had over the last decade.
Okay.
Probably somewhat uncalled for.
No. Called for.
Okay.
I don't know how far you went with it, but I'm just gonna say probably 90% deserved, if not more.
Yeah. So I'm not going to repeat the things that I said, not because I am ashamed of them, but because we are trying to tone down the language on the show.
Yeah.
And Louisiana State Troll comes up and just a little, like legit 3 or 4 minutes into us cussing each other out. And at some point, I'm like, oh, wishing murder on somebody that's not a Catholic. Mighty crusades of you. Yeah. So Louisiana State Patrol walks up, and as soon as they walk up, people are whipping their phones out taking videos.
Of course.
And it's loud. It's loud. It's in a dome for a playoff game. So I can't hear the guy. So I'm like, put my hands up. I'm like, hey, man, I can't hear you. I'm going to climb up my seat here so I can try to hear you. It's like, I'm not coming at you. I can see your mouth moving. Can't hear a sound you're making. And he nodded, so I climbed up the seat, and even more people's phones came out thinking I was trying to fight Louisiana State Patrol. So he's like, you've got to calm down. And I was like, I asked security to say something to her over an hour ago because she's talking about murdering that guy. Given what happened yesterday and the fact his family's right here, she needs to chill. And so his partner actually went over to talk to her. And so I sat back down. And then on the play that Cash Jones scores a touchdown.
Who?
Thank you.
Oh, the last time we can say that.
Oh, you made me sad.
Who?
Sad who noises.
Cash Jones.
On that play, before the pass gets thrown, she once again yells, kill him, put him in a body bag. And then they get a touchdown. So I turn around, double bird, and yell some not nice things at her again. And Louisiana State Patrol comes up, and I just immediately climb up the seat because it's even louder now.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you turn around one more time, I'm going to have to take you out of the stadium in handcuffs. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
And I was like, that's fine. but if she says one more word, you need to take both of us out.
Yeah.
And he went and talked to her again, and she didn't say another word.
Good.
Did y'all run into each other while you were leaving, or did you get out of like?
So fun little side story about that. So Gunner's cousin, because I can't turn around, and
Yeah.
his sister gave me a high five, and she goes, that was awesome. I appreciate that, because if you didn't, I wouldn't. I can't get taken out of this game.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, she just took it too far. Like it's too
Yeah.
much, too much. Like there's a hard line of things not to say in this very specific situation.
Yeah.
And she moved faster over that than she has in 30 years. Not she's
A
about
South Bend, a South Bend 10.
she was about 4 foot. She was about 60, 4 foot tall, and legitimately wider than she was tall. That's not a joke.
I
Oh,
was
wow.
gonna call it a. Never mind. I won't say what I was gonna say.
Yeah. So
Sounds like she'd fit in better at certain parts of Texas's stadium.
and
I'm not gonna say which part, but I think y'all know.
so before the game's over, all of his family that I was talking to during the game turns around, and her husband, her husband tried to come fight me and was too
Nice.
drunk and old and fell back down in a seat. So, his family that I was talking to turns around and goes, they're eyeballing you, pointing at you, and talking between themselves about you. And I'm like, is what it is after the game. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So his cousin that was sitting next to me goes, "Do you want me to take the bag of stuff you bought in your phone until we get like at least down one flight of stairs in case they try to start something?" I was like, "Yeah, that'll be cool." Handed my
You said that
stuff
was
over.
Gunner's cousin.
Yeah,
Okay.
and hand my stuff over, and they got out of their seats before I even stood up after I handed my stuff over. But I was like, hey, there's no lock on my phone. Just open the phone, find Kelsey, tell her what happened. She'll figure it out. Didn't come to that, but I was prepared. And
Yeah.
if Gunner's family ever hears this, thanks for making at least most of that interaction fun.
Yeah. Well, that's a good time. Speaking of Gunner, can we talk about how freaking good he looked out there?
I liked it, man. I did.
And
Like, considering he had about 2 seconds to throw every play, dude was unbelievable. First start, and it's in that context. And I've had people come out and blame him for the loss and say, "Well, he needs to transfer and go somewhere because we don't need him to play." Like, what game were you watching?
okay,
But this is somebody who doesn't understand football, saw him fumble once, and was like, "Oh, this guy's the
okay.
worst."
No, let's get into that.
Yeah, please.
So I don't know if you guys could hear it, or see it on TV, or I'm sure you saw it. But did you see how the rest of the line barely react to that ball getting snapped and how slow everybody was? Like that, we remember that where he got obliterated by a guy that never got touched because most of the line didn't move for like a half second.
Right. And
That was
yeah,
because the play clock was down to one. The stadium was doing a full volume ad read, and the only people that knew the ball was snapped was the center, Gunner, and the entire defense for about a half second.
yeah. What's crazy about that? They're technically not supposed to be playing any sounds after the play clock hits 12 seconds, right? That's what I was led to believe.
And that is 100% correct. So, in that situation, which I have seen happen before, the referees whistle it dead,
Mm-hmm.
make an announcement, and reset the play clock. That didn't happen. Gunner gets obliterated with a helmet to the football because the stadium and the referees didn't do the right thing.
Yeah.
And we know what happened there.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it, I know, in the off season. But, and again, no excuses, because I'm not just talking about this game.
This
Officiating has been terrible all year, including the playoffs and including this game. And I don't want to hear a single person anymore say that the referees bailed Georgia out all year when you had a referee running past his white track in the green grass, get shoved by a player, and then throw a flag at it.
It wasn't even a shove.
And again, that's not the reason.
It wasn't even a shove. He ran into the player.
I can't hear you. My thing's screwing up, but yeah. Let me move it real quick.
Yeah, no, the Georgia game in particular, Georgia wins that game if 4 plays go differently. 2 of them are officiating.
Yep.
The Gunner fumble, where the ball shouldn't have been snapped, the referee should have blown it dead.
Yeah.
All of what I just said. Referee was running into the green line, runs into a Georgia player, and instead of a sideline warning, which is
common there,
right?
What
they
usually do.
Supposed to be the first step in that situation. Georgia gets a 15-yard penalty on the biggest play of the game so far. So there's 2 referee mess ups. The other 2 plays were wide open touchdown passes where the wide receivers dropped the ball. Because had those other 2 happened anyways, 23-10, 2 wide open touchdown passes on different drives, score 24-23, Georgia wins anyways.
Yeah.
So did the referees mess things up? Yes, multiple times in very costly scenarios. Did Georgia wide receivers just kind of suck all year and not have the ability to catch passes that would have won them this game? Yes.
And that's not why we're sitting here saying the referees cost us this game. Georgia should be in the rest of this playoff, because that's not true. We know who this team is, and we know if those plays hadn't happened and we were in a position to win the game, the receiver still probably dropped the ball.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And, this is a conversation I had with somebody this morning that was talking like, Mike Bobo's the worst offensive coordinator Georgia's ever had. He needed to be fired this morning. And I was like, all right, here's 2 reasons I disagree with you.
As somebody who's not a Mike Bobo fan.
Right. And I was like, to be clear, before I say this, I agree he needs to no longer be the offense coordinator at the University of Georgia. But if he was going out and dropping passes, or if he was going out and smacking balls out of wide receivers' hands, you could blame that on him. But there were 2 touchdown plays that the wide receivers just dropped.
Yeah. I would argue there were moments. I know I criticized the play calling earlier. There were a lot of really great play calls by Mike Bobo in this game that just were not capitalized on.
Where Gunner threw the perfect pass.
Yes, he threw 3 deep balls in that game, better than anything I've ever seen Carson Beck throw. And no disrespect to Carson Beck, the deep ball was just never his thing.
Yeah.
But Gunner Stockton's got something.
That was a question going in too, and like he proved he could do it. So that's another positive thing looking forward to.
If he's got some folks who can catch, Branch is coming.
The rumblings is that Noah Thomas from A&M is too. So we're finally getting away from these like 5'10", 5'11", $150 guys, and like, hey dude, you're 6'3", 6'4", and strong. Yeah, we need 50-50 balls. We need somebody that can actually catch those.
That's where the Colby Young thing hurt probably the most.
Because he would have been that guy. Which
he was supposed to be that guy.
Lawson Lucky has started to move in that direction. He just doesn't quite have the takeoff to get there in time.
Right.
And that's no fault of his. He's a tight end. He's not a receiver. So
and with the way the offensive line played this year, he had to block more.
Yeah.
So is there an issue with Mike Bobo's play calling, and essentially another issue, personnel decisions?
Yeah.
Personnel decisions is a big one. The fact that we didn't see London Humphreys for the second half of the season.
Yeah, what was that about?
Inexcusable. The fact that Anthony Evans was the most explosive player in half of the games Georgia played this year.
Now he's transferring.
And now he's transferring because you were like, hey, dude, you're awesome. We're never going to throw you the football.
Right.
That
didn't make any sense to me. The longest play of the year was by Anthony Evans on an end around, and we said, let's just not do that anymore.
Never again. So the biggest issues I have with Mike Bobo, personnel, game management, and he has players that have specific skills and refuses to use them because In that game on Thursday, which I keep saying this past weekend because it just
It
felt
feels like the weekend. Yeah.
yeah. In this game, Georgia
Sorry.
had no time in pocket, personnel issues and decisions on the offensive line that we have not been happy about all season.
Mike, you happy about that? Real quick.
I'm thrilled with that. I didn't mean to curse on
I
that.
didn't
It was
hear it.
inaudible. Okay, good. I didn't see that. Oh, I'm behind. Yeah,
Oh.
buddy, let's go.
All right, continue.
Personnel decisions on the offensive line that none of us have liked for the entirety of the entire season. You have Xavier Truss still playing right tackle, who did an admirable job against Notre Dame. But you took out Ernest Green, a guy who had allowed 3 sacks in 2 seasons as the starting left tackle, one of those where he was a true freshman. And you said, you know what, kid, you've been good. We're going to put this other guy who's played no left tackle in his career at left tackle for the biggest games of the season. And then when they put Ernest Green back in for a few plays, they're actually able to run the ball and get time in the pocket, and they pull him back out. And I understand that Mike Bobo leaves personnel decisions up to position coaches. But when you see your position coaches can't make good decisions, you take those decisions out of their hands.
Speaking of guys who should be very afraid for their jobs.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah.
Stacey Searles, let's just say if Matt Luke is willing to leave the Clemson family, we'd love to have you back.
Come home, buddy.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back. But personnel decisions is the primary reason that Mike Bobo should not be the offense coordinator anymore. Secondary reason, specific players have specific skill sets. Mike Bobo is trying to hammer a square peg into a round hole for every player to fit each different position of the offense.
That wasn't what Todd Monken did, by the way. Todd Monken said, who's our best 11 guys and what do they do the best?
Right. Todd Monken, he was like, okay, so some of our, pretty much our best wide receivers are Brock Bowers and slot receivers. All right, let's just give everybody a slot route.
Yeah.
Like,
and it worked beautifully. By the way, this is the kind of thing that was so successful. Mike White said, let's try that in basketball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's mostly led to a lot of improvement for this Georgia basketball team too. So,
but my biggest issue with Mike Bobo in that game, Gunnar Stockton, what is one thing that he has that Carson Beck never did?
The mobility.
Legs, right? How many read options or
design runs or boots did we see in that game? I counted between both games he played. I counted 3, and 2 of them were quarterback draw right up the middle.
Okay.
With no other read.
Okay, so you're attempting to hammer a square peg into a round hole with a square peg right next to it.
Yeah, because Gunnar Stockton, like, don't get me wrong, he will take a hit like a champ, but get him to the outside and let him maneuver around some folk.
Well, the best plays he made in the SEC championship game were on bootlegs.
Yeah.
And Bobo just didn't give him the opportunity, and those 2 reasons right there.
I'm hoping, and I don't say this in a way to say I'm hoping he's still here next year to not make the mistake, because I want him gone. I'm hoping his idea was, okay, we're only changing 1 player. I don't need to confuse the other 10 players by totally rewriting the playbook. But they'll be fine. Put the route concepts in there and let it be the same for those players, and just have different protections and different stuff. These guys are smart enough to know what they're doing.
Georgia already has so many plays where the wide receivers and tight ends run flood concepts and levels and circus and all these other different route combinations that work for bootleg.
Just slightly adjust the protection and you're good.
Exactly. And I like you said, I do not hope Mike Bobo is back to make that correction.
Yeah.
But one reason that I'm calling bullshit on Kirby saying they have the same playbook is because Todd Monken had a playbook for Stetson Bennett.
Yep. Which means you just grab the same one.
You take those plays and you say, Gunnar Stockton is a taller, stronger, faster, better arm Stetson Bennett. Let's use these plays.
Yeah.
They work for 2 national titles.
And then you look at the NFL with Todd, what he's doing there is Lamar's about to get a second MVP and is just putting up 5,000 all-purpose yards and 40-something touchdowns. Like,
maybe we should use some of that.
Yeah. And I'm not one of those people that are upset Mike Bobo has not already been fired because obviously that's a Kirby Smart decision. We all know his dad just recently passed away. Kirby's not making that decision this week. He may not be able to make that decision next week. And no one, if you're a Georgia fan that's mad that Mike Bobo still has his job today, touch some grass because
I will
Kirby has made it very clear over the last few years of his career that as a staff, he wants you to value your family more than the program.
Yeah, I will gladly have a conversation with anybody who doubts this about how long it took me to be able to make high-stakes decisions after my dad died this summer. I will gladly have that conversation with you because it is not an easy thing to do, and I would absolutely not have wanted to be in his shoes on the night of the game itself. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how he powered through that. He's a tougher SOB than I am for sure.
Yeah. So Mike Bobo, none of us think that he realistically has a job at the end of January.
Correct.
But he has a job for the next week, probably 2, because I do think that while Kirby values family over the program, he still understands the timeline the program has to be in.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he did still have a job and it just was not his offensive coordinator calling the plays.
Right.
And
man, is there anything else that y'all want to talk about? We went on for this Georgia game for over 30 minutes.
And that's basically all I've got. Just there's reason to be optimistic for next year.
Please tell me why.
Ain't nothing but a heartache. Because we've got pieces, and we've got a quarterback coming in that looks, like you mentioned, like a better version of what we've won 2 national championships with. Defense is going to need some more work because a lot of our best pieces there are leaving, but we've been there before. I think we'll be fine there. We're always fine there with Kirby Smart. But as long as the right coaching decisions are made this offseason, we've got the players to at least make a deeper playoff run next year. And to me, that's the expectation. I don't think it's realistic to say we're going to do what Alabama did and win 8 national championships in the next 10 years or whatever.
Because nobody else has done that.
Yeah, nobody's doing that. But I do think we can be in a position where we are making deep playoff runs and most years are in at least the semifinal and probably the championship. And I think we do that next year. I think we're at least in the game next year. Just looking at the pieces we have, Gunnar Stockton can be special. And we saw what Stetson Bennett did with the whole offseason with the ones and how much he improved from 21 to 22. I think Gunnar Stockton could have that too.
So here's my cause for concern on next season. And y'all know me. By the time August rolls around, I'm all in. I've put the mortgage on Georgia winning another national championship. But, what is this? 3 days later, 4 days later?
Yeah. It's okay to be down 4 days later.
So here's my cause for concern is that secondary was not good enough this year.
Facts.
If there were guys in the program that were better than that, they would have been playing over the guys that have been playing this season.
I will say in response to that, what Kirby Smart values more than anything else on that field.
Yes.
Experience.
But counterpoint, KJ Bolden, Brock Bowers.
You're special.
When you're special,
you're special.
You're special.
Yeah.
So,
but do we need 11 guys who are special, or do we need a couple of guys who are special?
No, we needed one in the secondary for most of the season.
That's true.
And you arguably had a guy in Ellis Robinson that
Yeah.
never had the opportunity to play.
Yeah. Well, nobody's in front of him now, so
he's sticks around, which he should be. I mean, he should. He's got a great chance next year.
I'm not worried about the linebackers. Georgia's linebacking diversity. I don't care what Penn State says. Georgia has 5 guys starting in the NFL and how many All Pros. I don't care.
Yeah.
Linebackers are great. The defensive line didn't have the edge that it's had for years now.
True.
If there were guys better than that,
this year,
they would have been in the rotation. Yeah. So now you're telling me on defense, we may be leaning on transfers of true freshmen in the secondary and on the defensive line. Concerns me.
Yeah.
Fair.
Wide receivers, I think that's a personnel decision based on James Coley and Mike Bobo. But yeah, we haven't seen anything from a lot of these guys. We saw a little bit from Anthony Evans, who's in the portal. Hopefully we can reel him back in. Nitro Tuggle, who has affirmed his commitment to the University of Georgia.
Yes.
Who,
very good news. That's a guy I have a lot of high hopes for.
And the offensive line, I think with their struggles this year, if there were guys better, they would have been getting some playing time. But at the same time, the running back room doesn't have a dude, a proven dude. They got a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Not a proven dude, which concerns me. So I'll be bought back in by G-Day. Don't get me wrong, y'all. Yeah. I'll be all in on G-Day. But 3 days later, however long it's been, I'm not real high right now.
Yeah. I think a lot of what I'm hearing is uncertainty, which is fair. There's the guys, we don't know what we've got behind what we had this year, and we also don't know what the improvement in the offseason is going to be, and there's always some. So I'm a little more optimistic about it right now. I will probably be the opposite. I'll probably feel awful until G-Day, and then we'll see what happens G-Day. But
we'll just phase in and out simultaneously, so we always have at least one positive guy here.
There'll be one show at some point in here where we're both just kind of meh, and then we'll know where we're headed.
Yeah, hopefully it's a baseball episode. We're both meh on football.
There we go.
I'll just add one thing real quick, just to put a bow on the season. Like Kaleb talked about, this team still. They won an SEC championship, which in like the most flawed, kind of everything year that they've had since 2016.
They're champions, y'all.
They won something that's very difficult to do, and
it matters.
At the very minimum, they kept Texas from winning the SEC championship in their first year. So I think everybody should thank us thank Georgia for that.
One thing throughout history you've always been able to count on Georgia to do is keep teams from claiming stuff that they don't deserve, whether it's Texas in the SEC championship, whether it is Cincinnati and Hawaii with a national championship doing what Alabama failed to do against Utah and Auburn failed to do against UCF. You can count on Georgia to keep the pretenders out, even if we don't win it ourselves.
Indeed. But
none of the teams that still have a chance to win the national championship have any SEC titles. So are they real champions?
That's true. No.
Thank you.
The SEC one's the one that matters, and I know we weren't saying that in 2021, but we're saying it now, dadgummit.
An SEC championship is harder to win a national
that won the SEC title in 21.
That's true. There's a case to be made that Georgia is the rightful SEC champion of 2021 because they beat them the second time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, we're going to close it out here. As always, follow us on social media. All of them are on the screen if you're watching the stream, watching on YouTube. Share the show with your friends. Rate and review 5 stars. And always remember, there is nothing finer in the land
than a drunk,
obnoxious, slightly depressed Georgia fan.
Oh.